Have you ever wondered how you can build an amazing economy, making tons of techs, being able to sustain a fleet of hundreds of thousands relatively early into the game? Well, it all starts with a strong early economy. Anyhow, here are 10 important tips for managing biological empires that can help make your economy much, much better at the beginning of each game. The first tip for managing a strong early game economy is buying minerals instead of producing them. If you take a look at how much our workers are producing, our technician produces 8.6 energy credits and our miner produces 5.7 minerals. If we go to the market, however, we can see that a mineral costs only 1.3 energy to buy, where our technicians produce 1.5 times more energy than we do make minerals. This means that the best way to produce early game minerals is to simply buy minerals. Buy them at a maximum of 42, as after this the price of minerals will start to go up, and this should be a much better way to manage your early game economy. Additionally, techs that increase energy are easier to roll than techs that increase mineral output, further amplifying this um, efficiency. Another note that is, as soon as you start to need more than 42 minerals, you will need to produce them, as the price of minerals will keep going up and up if you start to buy more than 42. Another important thing that every empire needs to do is manage their early game consumer goods economy. The way to do this is we need to change our economic policy in order to produce either more consumer goods or alloys depending on what our economy aims to do. For most early biological empires, more consumer goods will be good, as we're going to need this to rush out as much tech as possible. Even with this setting, if we start time, we will notice that we're still producing not enough consumer goods and a bit too much alloys. One thing that every empire can do to balance this out is you can change your capital designation in order to most quickly get out your colony ships. So for example, I can alternate between factory capital, producing more consumer goods, and empire capital, which produces more alloys, in order to most quickly get the colony ships that we need. Once our colony ships are done, let's pretend that this science ship is a colony ship, we can simply switch over to factory capital for the remainder of the early game, as this way we can produce as many consumer goods as possible, and that will allow us to support the most researchers possible, as researchers consume consumer goods in order to produce tech, which is a very important resource. Of course, make sure you've taken at least your guaranteed habitals before you switch over to this. Another important thing everyone should do to manage their early game economy is to make sure that they have happy factions. Factions will normally start year 10, but they'll start year 0 if you have parliamentary system like I do. The benefit of factions is not only that they produce unity, they also affect your council agenda speed, as the higher your faction approval is, the higher the council legitimacy, and the faster the council agendas will pass, allowing you to produce a strong economy through having extra additional agendas. And in addition, your pop happiness improves your stability, and stability affects resources from jobs. As you can see right here, we have 9% extra resources from jobs. So let's go ahead and see what happens when we simply make our faction a little bit happier. One of the most common reasons for factions having lower approval is not having representation on the council. If we go ahead and take a look, if we go ahead and take a look at our council, we can see that all of our leaders are spiritualists, so we need to go and change that a little bit. Let's recruit this egalitarian leader, and this should improve our faction approval. Let's go ahead and pass some time to make sure that is kind of loaded in. And now we can see our faction approval is 90. We're getting 4 additional unity. This is not updated yet. Let's go ahead and update that. There we go. And if we now take a look at our council, we're now 92% council legitimacy, increasing our council agenda speed by 7 or 8%. And also our stability is now also 2% higher, resulting in an additional 1.2% economy from jobs, simply by clicking one button. How amazing is that? Another tip is starting the game with parliamentary system. Most biological empires benefit greatly from starting the game with parliamentary system. The reason for this is parliamentary system can be swapped out at year 10 for a better civic. And the benefit of parliamentary system conveniently only benefits the first 10 years. As mentioned before, your factions will found year 10 anyway, so we might as well get free factions for the first 10 years of the game, producing basically extra unity for the entire first decade. Plus 25 extra unity is very significant and helps us boost our early game economy. After this, at year 10, we simply have to elect a leader who is not our original starting leader, and this will allow us to then swap out for a new civic at year 10, basically getting the maximum benefit from parliamentary system and then getting the maximum benefit from a new civic. Another thing that many players might not know about is that you should always change your diplomatic stance to isolationist. Isolationist stance gives extra unity from the beginning of the game and is very useful as there's usually no need for the other benefits of any other government diplomatic stance at the beginning of the game. Additionally, make sure to check your edicts. For example, veneration of saints is great for spiritualist empires, basically giving free unity from your starting prius. For authoritarian, you might want to turn information quarantine, which is basically free stability and therefore a free 2% extra resources, as long as you're under your edict cap. Make sure you don't go over this as you'll be wasting a lot of unity. Sometimes the game likes to prioritize really bad jobs as a default. For example, the game really will prioritize clerks and colonists a lot more than they should. Make sure to go into your planets, manage your workers, and make sure they're working the more efficient jobs instead of the bad ones. Another thing is, if your crime is below 30, you don't actually need to work an enforcer job. Make sure you keep track of this though, as if this ever goes above 30, really bad things can happen to your planet. In addition, another benefit you can have is if there are no jobs that can be worked that are useful, like for example, we don't want to employ any clerks, a really useful thing you can do is go into your species and change their rights to utopian abundance. This allows us to get research and unity from having unemployed pops. Let's pass some time to see what happens. As you can see, with these 2 unemployed pops and utopian abundance, not only is our pop approval happier, boosting our unity up, our factions are now producing 18 and 22 unity respectively. Remember, these added up to 25 before. And we're also getting additional unity from unemployed pops and additional research. The game won't let me. Okay, here we go. Yeah, we can see that our unemployed pop is making 3 of each research and 3 unity, which is a really, really large amount for early game. It does cost consumer goods, so make sure you remember to turn this off and set this back down to something like social welfare as soon as you're able to at year 10. By this point in time, you hopefully have, built the buildings that create jobs that, makes it so you no longer need to work your pops as unemployed. Editing me here, I think I also forgot to mention that if you do use Utopian Abundance, year 10 is a great time to turn it off. Also, Utopian Abundance is only available for egalitarian empires, but egalitarian is often a really great choice for biological empires. By going back to social welfare, we can see that our consumer goods income will go back up, and as all of our pops are employed, we no longer need the benefits. Another important thing to know is that when you're playing empires which are under 100 empire size, skipping agendas early is a very powerful thing you can do when in combination with statecraft, which gives your leaders EXP simply for passing an agenda. The unity cost when you're below 100 is very, very small, as once the agenda gets around to about halfway, you can skip it for very cheap. For example, I would recommend skipping agendas once they're less than 1500 unity to do so. And this will, as you can see, level up our leaders, increasing leader EXP, and also allow us to put in much better counselor positions or pass very helpful agendas, such as Favored Society. Favored Society is unlocked by the Prosperity Tradition tree and is one of the strongest tradition trees in the entire game. Unless you have a specific reason not to do so or a build you're aiming for, taking Prosperity is a great way to increase your early economy, especially in combination with the Favored Society tree, which produces 5% more resources immediately and 20% when it's done, which is an absolutely massive amount more resources. So here I am in a world that I just started, and I kind of want to show you guys the effects of taking in all the tips that I've just mentioned. So far, you've used factory capital to designate our capital to factory, meaning we can sustain consumer goods of a lot of research labs. And as you can see, on our planets, nor our homeworld are we working any clerks, any enforcers, or any generally inefficient jobs. In addition, we're building research labs on every single planet, yet we can still easily sustain our economy with positive energy credits, and this is kind of what you should be aiming for early game with very low amount of extra energy credits, good amount of positive minerals so we can keep building. As long as minerals are positive, we can always build ourselves out of almost any deficit that might occur. And our empire size is still small, 73. This, of course, allows us to pass agendas. One thing I forgot to mention with this is you should always, if you have the tech, turn education campaign on, which is unlocked by the technology um, in society called, let me find it, called planetary unification. So as long as you have planetary unification, remember to always turn on education campaign, pass the agenda, giving bonus EXP, and then simply unticking this as we don't want to waste energy maintaining that. And this will allow us to pass agendas more quickly than normal and allow us to get a bigger council, which increases our council agenda speed. Our legitimacy is a bit bad. As we can see, we are missing an egalitarian leader for a second because we took this guy out. But if I think we pass some time, it'll fix itself real quickly. I hate the government tab, by the way. It's so clunky. And yeah, here we go. As we can see, we still have high council legitimacy, high stability, and everything is going great. We can either do favorite society here or another agenda. Mind over matter is also great, so I'm going to do that first, actually. But another thing we should also notice is that always remember to turn on your edicts for whichever resource you're producing the most of. So for me, that's currently energy and minerals are tied as we have 3 workers apiece. And we can see the efficiency difference. Our technicians are now twice as efficient as our miners, which is why we're buying as many minerals as we can with our energy credits. So yeah, with those efficiency tips, just we're able to produce 179 research at year 6, and I'll show you guys the progress by year 10. And here we are just before year 10. As we can see, we're now up to 270 tech. On the very best runs, you can be almost close to 300 at this point, and our basic economy is still doing absolutely fine. Yeah, by just knowing these micromanagement tips, such as redesignating your capital and optimizing things such as your species rights and edicts and all that thing, we can see how efficient our pops can get. And here is our first election that I mentioned earlier. One thing you would always want to do is make sure, so Mimi is my starting leader, I want to increase support for any other leader. Sometimes you will need a decent unity stockpile to get them to the top of the pile, and then if we go ahead and wait a few months, we can go ahead and see that our government will be able to be reformed. If we take a look at our planets here, as we can see, we're building research labs on basically every planet. This is how you should start almost every game on Bio. Oops, also, we should not take that technology. That's not a very good tech. If you want to know why, you can look at my tech rushing guide on the same build I made earlier. Yeah, basically the idea behind these planets is at this point in time we can now make a decision. We can either try to defend ourselves and start building up basic resources and alloys in order to get to a year 30 point where we have some military, or we can continue to try to rush tech and defend ourselves via technology, such as getting tech such as planetary shields and fortresses, so that we can make our planets very immune to bombardment, allowing us to survive that way. Anyhow, with a strong early tech lead like this should help you do a lot better in your multiplayer or single player games and just have more fun playing Stellaris. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. See you guys next time. Oh wait, I'm silly, I forgot to show you guys the government reform, so let's go ahead and speed this up for a few months. Alright, and once our new leader is elected, what we can do is we can go into our government tab, and we can go ahead and change our leadership to something that is better. For example, I really like reanimators as a second civic. I believe it's one of the most underrated. We will have to redo our council, but this will also let us select better councilor members to to boost our efficiency even more, ignoring things like statecraft, which isn't very good, especially early game, and in multiplayer games it's really not necessary. And we can go ahead and employ better leaders. And as we take a look now, okay, our unity will need some time to recover, as we currently don't have factions until new factions are founded. Okay, there we go. And of course, we can now go ahead and enjoy the benefits of having our new civic, such as building dread encampments. Anyhow, hopefully you guys have a much better understanding of how to manage your early game economy now and can get off to a strong start. Thanks for watching. if you're interested in videos like this, also please subscribe, as I'm going to release many more Stellaris guides on more in-depth topics and maybe full gameplays, anything you guys want. If you're watching, please leave a comment on what you want to see next, as it'll really help me make decisions in the future. Thanks a lot.